Can you hear me all right? Okay. Well, I'm glad to see a good turnout here, and I did go on a Veterans Honor Flight back last month, first part of last month, and flew out of Wichita to Baltimore and visited Fort McHenry the afternoon that we arrived there, and then next day we stayed in Baltimore for the night. The next day we went down to D.C. to the memorials and took all that in. On the honor flights, we had, this was for World War II and Korean War veterans. We had 23 Korean War veterans and 3 World War II veterans. I was one of the, I applied, I served in both time frames, but I was, I applied as a World War II veteran because we're a disappearing breed. That's just the way it was. And I was actually the youngest World War II veteran at 88 years old. The oldest was a 93-year-old gentleman. And we did have, every veteran is required to have a guardian, what they call a guardian. And it's needed because so many of the veterans, even the Korean War veterans, already have mobility problems. They have health problems. And a lot of them needed help in just getting on and off the bus, that type of thing. So, and my son came down from Iowa, and he was my guardian. And I had three days of the best quality time that I've had with that guy since he was a kid, and he and I used to go 3 and 4 days at a time and camp out up on the Mississippi River, and we'd fish the backwaters of the river there. And in conversation with him, he told me, he says, those are some of the happiest days of my life. And so it was really great to get with him for this honor flight. And I'm saying the reason why these flights are so important is the age and the health issues involved. This flight was limited to Korean War veterans and World War II veterans. And even, well, the World War II veterans, the youngest would be my age, about 88 years old. The oldest would be in their mid-90s on up. You know, if they're still living, the mid-90s on up. And even the Korean War veterans, the youngest would be 83 years old, the oldest would be on up from there. So, and of course, as I said, so many of them have health problems. This needed to be done. Also, these memorials, the World War II memorial and all of the Vietnam memorial weren't finished until 2004. So some of those veterans already were having health issues before they even finished the memorial. So it was good that they did that. And the 2 leaders we had was Mike and Connie Van Kampen, and they just do a super job in organizing these flights. And they know Mike Van Kampen. He knows that whole area up there, Baltimore, D.C., he knows that area so well that at times he had to tell the city bus driver where to go. So he really knows the area and is very, they both are just very effective in the way they conduct these flights. They also had they had a nurse aboard this bus, so that if we had any health issues, that the nurse would be available. Going on, one of the things on a trip like this, I mean, it was important for me to see those memorials, but the most important thing to me was contact with the people involved. And so I had some conversations with, starting out on the bus from Wichita to Dallas. A woman sat down beside me, and she told me that her father was a World War II veteran and flew a bomber, and they got caught in a typhoon in the Pacific, and it went down, and he was the only surviving member of the crew. he went on to, as a career Air Force pilot, and he had actually trained pilots on flying B-52s out of Castle Air Force Base, where I had been stationed in 1950-51. So we had a good conversation about that, because she had been a young person then at that time. And then I ran into a Navy veteran of the Korean War. Now, for my own service, I went in time to get, just the tail end of World War II, where I was qualified as a World War II veteran. I didn't see combat. I trained as a telephone lineman in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. They sent me to Panama, and I went through 11 months of training in all phases of harbor mines, controlled harbor mines, from pulling up out of the water, scraping off the rusted barnacles, repainting, pulling out the wiring, rewiring them, shoveling TNT into them, repaint, getting them back into the water. So, but anyway, talking with this guy, he was a Navy sonar man, and his job was to find the mines. so we had an interesting conversation. And then I also, there was the oldest person on this flight, his name was Ivanhoe Love. Ivanhoe was a black soldier, World War II, 93 years old, the oldest man on the trip. He was on oxygen in a wheelchair, but his son was his guardian, and his son was Ivanhoe Jr. And his son was actually a retired command master sergeant, and he had fought in Vietnam and been injured in Vietnam, but he was there with his dad. Ivanhoe, by the way, was with the combat engineers, and he built landing strips, he built roads in the combat zones. When I got out of the service, he was in the Corps of Engineers, and he got to talking with my son, who's retired from the Army Corps of Engineers as a civil engineer. And Ivanhoe talked about how he built wing dams on the Mississippi River back in right after the war. And my son has also built those wing dams on Mississippi River, so they both had good conversations. Ivanhoe was actually doing those wing dams when they would actually cut down willow trees and weave willows into the wing dams for reinforcement. Nowadays they use synthetic materials. But anyway, the idea of those wing dams is to channel water into the center of the river for navigation, to enable a navigation trail. Anyway, I'm spending too much time on that. But I will say this about Ivanhoe. I asked him, did you take your construction training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri? Because later when I served in the Air Force 4 years, starting in July of 50 through July of 54. And I sent people who needed construction training to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And I said, did you take your training there? No. He says, I took my training in Texas because they wouldn't let me train with the white guys. So, yes. Then I also ran into Harold Henry. Harold Henry was actually a member of Strategic Air Command, the same command I was in for 4 years. And he was stationed in French Morocco, and Harold was he was an aircraft mechanic, mainly working on B-47s from flying. Well, they loaded those B-47s with nukes, nuclear bombs, and from French Morocco they could fly over any target in the Soviet Union and return without refueling. And so that's why we had those forward bases there. But I had good conversations with him. During that period of time, I was programmed out of SAC headquarters. I was stationed there for 2 years, and I was programming personnel into French Morocco to man those B-47 wings there in French Morocco. And it was called French Morocco at that time. Now later they changed that name. And then there's a man, oh by the way, on these trips, they need volunteer guardians other than just, most of the guardians were like sons and daughters, or family member. but they need volunteer guardians because some of the people can't line up a guardian. One man on this flight, John Kruger, he's paid his own way $700 3 times to make these trips as a volunteer guardian to help the veterans, to get around. And then I might mention that several years ago, I had a conversation with Tom Grubb. Anybody here know Tom? Knew him? Okay. And I had known Tom for quite a while. We got to talking and found out that we were both in the Air Force at the same base, working under the same officer at SAC headquarters. And 10 years after I got out of the Air Force, Tom went over to Morocco with the officer I worked for and helped him close those bases down. So that was interesting. But I enjoy the conversations with the people around me. And so this tonight is not going to be a tour of pictures and monuments. You'll see some monuments, but all of you can take those pictures get those pictures with a smartphone or your computer better than I could get for you. Okay, let's go. Okay, we're here. While I was there, this is at Arlington, and at Arlington, I was selected to be one of the 2 people up front to place the wreath when they did the changing of the guard at Arlington. I was like one of the 2 people to place the wreath on the Tomb of the Unknowns, and I was selected because I was the only World War II veteran who could walk up and down 15 steps. I'm sorry, but that was the reason. Okay, go ahead. Here we're lined up at an airport, and at the airports, everyone was required to get in a wheelchair. And they have that thing so organized that they whisk you right through and get you on that airplane in a hurry. And the veterans get on the airplane first, and then they load other passengers. And then when you land, the other passengers go off first, the veterans come off after them. But it's amazing how they really move you through those airports. Okay, my son, he, as I say, he's a retired Corps of Engineers. He's a civil engineer, and he's from Iowa, so he wanted his picture taken in front of Iowa. And by the way, we had mail call. Now, anybody who's been in World War II know, used to get outside the barracks, and they'd hand out mail by calling off your names. Well, they had a banquet with mail call, and there's 3 of our Kiwanians sent me a letter. Carol sent me one, Doug Tippin sent me one, Carol Bailey sent me one. Anyway, also some school kids were instructed to write letters to the veterans. And so here, I hope you can read this, but I had Lori, we made pictures of 3 of these letters. Here's one. It says, "Thank you for helping save the country from England if you were in the war of the United States of America." and here's one. This one says, "Thank you for serving our country. I appreciate that you fought freedom and democracy." That you fought freedom and democracy. I hope you're happy. I am in 5th grade. I like to ride a bike. And here's one. It says, "Have you ever got shot?" You know, I'm going to be a soldier to thank you for saving our country. Sincerely. Okay, so those are some of the letters that I received. I really enjoy those. Go ahead. Our first stop was at Fort McHenry, and we're just there briefly. Fort McHenry was part of the War of 1812, and we did participate in, you want to go to that flag there. They had a flag there that, this is a replica of the original flag that was flown at Fort McHenry after the battle, and when the British were pulling their ships out, they gave up pulling out, and they had this flag that was 30 feet by 40 feet, 30 wide, 40 feet long. And I guess they put the flag up in the air after that battle, and it took all of us guys to help get that folded and unfolded. Okay, this was, I just took some pictures memorials that really did touch me. And one is you can't help but feel touched when you look at the names of all those people who were killed in Vietnam. Okay, this part of the Vietnam Memorial. This one, I got several pictures of this one because it really did impress me. It's the nurses in the Vietnam period taking care of a wounded soldier, and the one nurse, I'm assuming, is looking for a helicopter to come in and pick him up. But I mean, that really did impress me, and I took several pictures of that. Okay. This was at the Korean Memorial, I believe. And okay, Korean. This was. Oh, I got this one. I wanted this one in here because in the Korean Memorial, I'm assuming this lady is probably Korean, but there's even a ceremony going on with some Korean officers there at the time I was there. But I thought that was interesting. Go ahead. In front of the Pacific Memorial. And this is the gentleman I was telling you about, Ivanhoe Love. He's just a very, very interesting person. He and his son both. Go ahead. I have two pictures. See, I was drafted in the Army out of Kentucky. And I had two pictures. That's one of them. I had my hand over my heart, but that one got lost. Go ahead. I wanted to especially show like recognizing women as being a part of winning World War II. In fact, World War II. There's one monument there that shows very vividly how in World War II the entire country was in that. It was anywhere from men, women, children, everybody was into it. And it wasn't just people who were ordinary people. I mean, your doctors, your lawyers, your engineers, your professionals, they were in it. I mean, everybody. There were very few exemptions. I mean, you couldn't sing a sad song and get out of it. Okay, go ahead. Oh, this is at the Air Force Memorial. And go ahead. I had a picture taken there because Curtis LeMay was the commander of SAC the whole time I was there. I met LeMay once. He was big on having a hobby shop for the enlisted people. And I was with a friend who was working on his car, and LeMay came over to give him some tips on fixing the car. And I got a chance to see that. Here we're getting ready to do the the placing of the wreath, changing of the guard. Okay, and this is still of us going down. And, as I mentioned, we do have those steps, and I think they were a little nervous that some of us old guys might topple going up down those steps. They acted like they were a little nervous about that. And here is where we're placing the wreath. Soldiers part of the changing guard. Okay. This is where we turned. We placed that wreath with the cans of sunflower on it, and we're coming back out. Okay. Now, can you get the screen those names?
Yeah. First, I'll get this video up here.
Sure. Okay. I can explain to them what's going on here. We did obtain a YouTube video of the changing of the guard, and hopefully this is going to work for us. And if it does...
Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony that you are about to witness is an art...
Okay, first I gotta try to
Get
I may have to shut the slideshow down and then start it back up.
Okay,
again.
that's all right. You mean to get the names?
Get the video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not sure why, but...
Here you are.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can possibly get the video going.
Is it all right if I go ahead and talk with people
Yeah.
while you do it? Okay. During this changing of the guard, they do play taps. And what I wanted to do, I went through the 1999 Kiwanis roster when I first joined Kiwanis, 1999, and there were 23 World War II veterans in this club at that time. I didn't know all those people, 23 of them. And as far as I can tell right now, there's 4 of us still alive here in Manhattan. There's one I couldn't find out, Fred Hoppy. I don't know, he moved out of state. I never could find out about him. But there's 4 of us that are still here, and no, do we have to?
I can try.
Pre-committee laying ceremony to be conducted by Kansas
That'll
Park.
work. That'll work.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, when you get ready to play that, just play the text.
I'll bring that back
Okay. Yeah, just don't
up.
lose
I'm
that.
not sure
I want those guys' names that we get, because I don't have a copy for copy.
Pre-set up.
Can we just stop that for now, just a second? Or if you can't, just let it go. Okay. I'll go ahead with that.
Did you want me to stop the video?
I just want to explain something here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is a list of those names of those people that I was talking about. And there are 4 of these people that I wish any one of them could be here to do this program tonight because of their combat experience. One of them was Wilton Thomas, who spent almost 4 years in combat zone. Homer Sokolovsky, who was on Iwo Jima, and Dr. Phil Hostetter, infantry combat doctor and surgeon. And there's one other, I had it over here. No, that was it. I'm sorry, that was it. Okay. But especially, it'd be great if one of those guys could be here to do this program tonight. But what I do want to do when they're playing taps, I'd like to call off the names of the people on this list. Kurt Baker, Merle Blackman, Ellsworth Garretts, Philip Hostetter, William Johnson, Eldon Kopp, Burl Koch, Arnie Mader, Ralph Miller, Bob Puddin, Bob Smale, Homer Sokolovsky, Robert Snyder, Clarence Stewart, Perry Stonehawker, Wilton Thomas, Kenneth Visser, and Clyde Wassam.
You missed it.
Order! Oh!
That's it. I can, now, that's it. That was the end of it. Or do we have some more to go
We
here?
have a few more.
Okay. By the way, did I miss somebody's name off that list?
You didn't mention that in the call.
Well, I'm just mentioning those who were deceased.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, here's what I wanted to mention here about this. We were given an opportunity to turn in names of people to be remembered at the memorials, and I did turn in the names of Wilton Thomas and Burl Coke, and Nina's father. Her father was in combat in World War I, Frank Gibbs. And so they did, when they had bugler play taps, they mentioned their names in recognition. Last year, Ed told me that last year he did mention Homer Sokolovsky, and he was mentioned. Okay. The three, starting with me going this way, the first three there are World War II veterans. This fellow was Korean War. There's a whole line of us there, but the first three there are the World War II veterans. Okay, at Wichita Airport, I mean, all the airports have tremendous welcoming, and the people were clapping and coming up and shaking their hands, and just, I mean, it was quite a reception. And when we came back to the Wichita Airport, they had a huge reception there for us, including children. They brought children out to see us come back. Okay. Go ahead. Oh, in Wichita, they even had a guy playing a banjo for us.
That's the last one.
That's it. Okay. All right. Well, that is the program, and if you do have any questions, we'll be glad to hear them.
Ken, how long a trip was it? I know you probably said, but I missed that, I guess.
Well, actually, let's see, we flew from Wichita to Dallas, which I think was under an hour, and we flew Southwest Airlines out of Dallas to Baltimore, and that I think is about a 4-hour flight. I think. I'm not sure, but.
How many days are we talking?
Oh, okay. No, it was 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah, we were out 3 days, and.
How often do they do that changing of the guards?
You know,
Is it once a year? Or
no, they do it.
Several times a day.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's very often. It is very often, right? Yeah.
The honors
You go by
flights
state now?
started, weren't they just one day long? It's like,
Say that again.
seemed like when I lived in Nebraska and they were talking about the honor flights, it would just, they'd like leave at 5 in the morning and be back at, it's like 24 hours.
Okay, there's some of these flights that are not that short, but they're shorter. Like they fly flights out of, the Omega group flies out of Kansas City, and they go out and spend one night and they're back. They're out and right back out of Wamego, and the Wamego high school kids are guardians for these. And by the way, the cost of this for the veteran is free, and the guardians it's $700 for each guardian. And so the kids over Wamego, I think they raise money. They raise money and to pay their way. Southwest Airline, I think heavily subsidizes the veterans flights. And I know we get good discounts at the hotels also. Yes.
And how are you selected? Is there just names that are submitted, or how do you get selected to go on?
What you do, you do have to apply. And when I called and I told them that I had served in both World War II and Korean War time frame, they told me I should apply for the World War II because they just don't have any of them. And but other than that, I would assume that most of the people who really, I don't know if they have any backups on that or not. I know they would be limited to how many people they want to take on board because just the number they can take care of and get in and out of those airports quickly. Yes.
The groups, do you go by state, you go by region?
This is Kansas. This one was Kansas, and so people all over the state. I mean, anyone in Kansas could apply, and they were from different, different parts of the state. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for watching the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.